So I just figured out the origins of the word for honeymoon, and let me explain. I can't remember if it was someone who commented on a video or someone who said this in real life, because, you know, real life and the TikTok metaverse are kind of blending to me. Somebody asked me, was there a goddess for menstruation in ancient Greece, Rome, wherever? And since the beginning of time, there have been fertility goddesses. Long before Greece was Greece, the disc of Festos, which they couldn't even decipher once they figured it out, means, you know, all hail the fertility goddesses, how great are women, they can bear children, hooray. So, of course, quite an important part of life. But that's fertility, not necessarily menstruation. Now, some scholarship suggests that Artemis was the goddess of menstruation. Despite being a chaste goddess canonically, she was also the goddess of childbirth and sometimes marriage. She basically was the goddess of transition periods for women. So that would include things like marriage and then maybe also things like becoming fertile for the first time. But this isn't really good enough for me, so I kept digging. Now, Selene, the goddess of the moon, she had 50 daughters, and they were known as the Menai, no doubt where the word menstruation comes from. So the Menai were kind of moon goddesses, goddesses of a cyclical time period. They were the goddesses of the 50 lunar months, but also the 4-year Olympiad. They were the goddess of these period cycles. Everybody knows about the tie between the moon and menstruation, with primitive people using the moon to kind of track their period. And I was like, why the Olympiad cycle of 4 years too? There is an ancient temple to Hera in Olympia, and Hera being the goddess of marriage, she is also associated with the menstrual cycle. Not only that, but every 4 years there would be some ritual games and feasts called the Heraya, and there would be 3 groups of runners running according to which phase of the moon that they represented. Before that, however, there was some mythology saying that on the night of the new moon, women would walk down to a special river called Eleutheria, where they would bathe and lay branches in a circle as like a kind of a cleansing ritual that would prompt the menstrual blood to be flowing, and then they could clean themselves. And at the same time, they'd be worshipping Hera. Not only that, but ambrosia, the food of the god, was made up of the menstrual blood of Hera mixed with honey, and that would keep the gods immortal. And Hera being the goddess of marriage, the period of time following a wedding or a marriage was called the honeymoon. It represented that 1 month, and the ambrosia was called moon honey. And honey was often a euphemism for menstrual blood. I don't feel like I'm explaining this well, but I wonder if people knew more about this, then maybe periods would be like less stigmatized. Yes, my menstrual blood is food of the gods, thank you. Life-giving moon honey. The elixir of life, thank you.